Leading Through Disruption. This is episode 3, where students learn from business leaders how to respond when you are thrown a curve. We want to welcome our guest, Mr. Paul Granillo from the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. Paul is the CEO of IEP and has led since 2010 with a vision for bettering the quality of life and business climate of Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Paul serves on many different boards and committees across the state, working to collectively develop innovative regional solutions to the state's most pressing economic, environmental, and community challenges. A native of the Inland Empire, Paul was born and raised in Redlands. He received a BA from Cal State San Bernardino, a Master of Divinity from St. John's Seminary in Camarillo, and a licentiate in canon law from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. You can follow him and the IEP on Twitter at IEP_. So Paul, welcome to the webcast.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So Paul, in light of the current crisis the world is now facing, what has been your organization's biggest challenge so far? And how has the IEP positioned itself to meet that challenge?
So I think, like all of you in education, what it's meant for us at IEP is just a total change in how we do business, and even the focus of our organization. So the Inland Empire Economic Partnership is a regional leadership organization made up of the larger employers of Riverside and San Bernardino counties, the two counties themselves. We have a member of the Board of Supervisors who sits on our board. Our educational committee is led by Chancellor Wilcox at UCR and President Morales at Cal State San Bernardino. So our work is about bringing people together to find solutions for the current health and economic crisis. And that's, in some ways, it's been difficult, and in other ways, it's been easier. This whole idea that you can call a meeting and get some pretty important people all together in a relatively short period of time, that's a change. Sometimes we had to wait, months to schedule meetings, and now all of a sudden we can do it in days or weeks. So our focus is really been first and foremost to help the health responders, work with the hospitals, and it's slowly transitioning into the economic crisis and trying to make sure that we're helping those that have been hit the worst try and recover. So for the Inland Empire, as we sit here on Thursday, we're probably at about somewhere between 20 to 22% unemployment. To let you know that, basically 2 months ago, we were at about 4.3% unemployment. So this is a major disruption, a major change. We know that when the Inland Empire, when the economy of the nation struggles, the Inland Empire's economy struggles even worse. And so what we're trying to do is put together teams that are focused on different parts of the economy, different sectors of the economy, and to make sure that we're, wherever possible, not duplicating initiatives, that we're working together, that we're bringing together all of the resources that we can, and most especially that we're making sure that our region, a region of 4.6 million people, 11% of Californians, is well represented in the recovery discussion at the federal and state level.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all the efforts. I know San Bernardino County is the biggest county in the country, and when you combine that with the work that happens in the 2-county region in the IE, it makes it even bigger. So Paul, what leadership skills, first of all, your background was really interesting to me as I kind of read through that. And so I think as you reflect on what leadership skills have you found to be the most important as you lead your team and as you lead multiple teams through the challenges that we're facing today?
So I think that, in my careers, right, there's always, there's been economic challenges, there's been different types of crisis. And I think that what I've learned over those years is that we have to be honest. You have to be honest about the situation. You can't hide anything. You need to help people appreciate the reality. That sometimes means that you have to talk about things that you would never want to talk about. You don't want to have to talk about layoffs. You don't want to have to talk about downsizing. Um, those are issues that we most of the time we don't have to worry about. In the current crisis, we need to. And then we need to remember that this is a health crisis, that we're dealing with life, literally with life and death. And as much as it is difficult for people to change their way of life, I think that it's necessary so that we can save lives. And so I think that early on with my team, as we could see that we were, if you remember, right, slowly winding the economy down, okay? And that meant that we were going to have to be prepared for basically the 2 months we lived. So communication has always been at the forefront of my leadership style. We had team meetings. We talked about possibilities. We had begun. We're just a lot of it was you can't claim credit for which you didn't do, purposeful. But we had just changed out our computer systems. And so there was already the ability for us to be able to work remotely. But that last 2 weeks, we were certainly focused on making sure that we would be able to do this type of communication. And then I think just being appreciating the level of the situation. So the good part about my job is that I get to talk to economists almost every day. I'm getting up to date information on unemployment rates and all of that. So to me, that information, more information is better than less. I get to talk to industry leaders in healthcare and manufacturing, logistics. I get to work with our educational leaders. And so I get to hear what's going on. Now, the bad part of my job is that I get to hear what's going on. Okay. So a lot of Zoom meetings with not a lot of positivity, right? Because things are just continuing to be very difficult. And all of you in education know that. You know that the tensions and the struggles and of just trying to figure out how you do what you're supposed to do. And that's the almost evilness of COVID-19, right? It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, it can kill you, okay? Unfortunately, it's killing poor people and people of color at a higher rate than others, right? But you could have been the richest person in the world 2 months ago, and now you're not, right? Because of the way the economy had to be shut down. Almost unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented in modern times. So I think we have to be realistic about the times we live in. We have to be honest, and we have to be over communicating. And I think that is a way of alleviating a lot of people's stress. You may think it's creating more stress, but ultimately when we have more knowledge, we can live a little bit better.
Well, I think, thank you for sharing. I think the idea of being realistic, honest, and over communicating, right, in terms of leaders being able to do that, especially during this time, is so critical. As you think about this crisis, what new skills are being required of your team members as your organization responds to this disruption?
Well, so let's start with team member me, right? So I'm a Gen Xer, okay? Trained by people in the greatest generation and baby boomers, right? Where you need to see people in the office, right? You need to have meetings face to face. You need to make sure that people are doing what they're doing. I've had to change that, right? I've had to change that. I've had to figure out that you got to take off the mute button. on these Zoom calls, right? And I'm not the most technology savvy person, right? So that's a change for me. Now I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by a team that is not only tech savvy, but I think they're pretty good communicators, right? And so as a team, we're able to. We haven't missed a beat. If anything, we've worked double time in order to meet the needs of our members and the Inland Empire community. This morning we had a live stream with elected leadership, mayors, council members, city managers, about the pain that the cities are going through. For me and my team, because again, we deal with every part of the economy. We deal with transportation, we deal with airports. You need to learn to speak those languages. If you're talking to people in healthcare, they have a language. Educators have a language, right? People in manufacturing have a language. So we need to be able to speak that language. Sometimes we need to be able to translate. And so those are skills that you need to be able to bring together. IEP does a lot of work in workforce development, and we partner with Superintendent Alejandre, Superintendent White, great partners, great leaders, and trying to make sure that our students are not only well educated, but well prepared for the workforce. And that work is going to be more important than ever. So that's requiring us, what was already, an imperative is now a crisis, right? And so we need to make sure that the graduating class of 2020 is able to find jobs as fast as possible. And so we're going to play the role of intermediary between our job creators and with you, our education partners, to make sure that we're getting those students jobs and that we can get back to normal as soon as possible. So a lot of translation, speaking, paying attention, speaking people's languages. And then I think the other piece in the crisis is time management. It's really amazing to me the amount of work that's being done in this new reality. Where, can you remember any time that you used to schedule 45-minute meetings, right? Not an hour, but 45-minute meetings, because we got to get an extra one in, right? I think that when we do the after action report, this way of communicating is going to be a new part of our life. I think there are upsides to that. I think there are upsides certainly to the environment. There are upsides to quality of life. At the end of the day, I'm still home. I'm, ready to go take my daughter for a bike ride, right? Things that never could have been done before if I was driving home for an hour or two, if I was in Los Angeles. So time management and leading, communicating in a different modes.
Paul, as you talked a little about education and translating is such an important skill. Being a lifetime educator for me, learning how to translate as I continue to work with businesses and different agencies is a skill that I'm still starting to hone. And I think in a time like this, that accelerates. So that's great feedback. Now, what lessons would you encourage students, and not just students, but even professionals, to take from this to better prepare themselves for the future?
So I really think that if there's an opportunity from all of this, it's a huge one. And that's for us as the human race, whether you believe in the divine or not, right? We got stopped dead in our tracks, okay? And what was really important before, or we thought was important before, all of a sudden really isn't, okay? And so I think that the opportunity is really to rethink what is important to us, life, family, how we can use this opportunity to restart. Maybe some things that we were stuck with because that's just the way it always had to be done. Certainly that adage doesn't hold up anywhere in this crisis. We have watched our first responders and healthcare community do something that they really weren't ever prepared for. Southern California prepared for an earthquake. Texas and Tennessee prepared for tornado season. Well, this thing happened everywhere in our country and the world. And yet we as human beings have been able to respond. We were able to spend 2 months at home, right? Line up for groceries, right? All of this needs to make us reflect, I think, on what we need to do to, again, avoid this, again, to care for one another, our communities, right? It's Memorial Day weekend. A lot of Memorial Day celebrations canceled, right? 4th of July canceled. We're going to have to find, new ways to have those celebrations, and I hope it's more meaningful to us. So my hope is that we go deep, right? Personally, professionally, and realize that at the core, right? We've only got so much time, and we should be using that to better our society, right? Better our world. And I think that there's an opportunity here because of what we've had to go through.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Let's see if we have some questions. So, Paul, one of the questions that came up was, what unique assets do you see within the IE communities that will lead us through this next economic season?
You know what? It locked up a little bit there. Can you ask that one more time?
Sure. So the question was, what unique assets do you see within the Inland Empire communities that will lead us through this next economic season?
Okay. So, it's always a flashpoint for the Inland Empire, but our logistics industry, all right, 10% of all warehouses in the country are located here in the United States, or in the Inland Empire. So 10% of all warehouses in the United States are located in the Inland Empire. We are one of the biggest logistics hubs in the world. And what we have seen, right, through the COVID-19 crisis is that the Inland Empire is holding up the economy of the state and the West Coast. Can you imagine what this would have been like if people hadn't been able to have goods, medicine, toys for the young people delivered, all right? And so I think that we have to look at how this concentration of the supply chain that we as people have made, because we've chosen not to go to stores anymore. We go to Amazon and others. That we have to look and say, how do we make this the best logistics and supply chain center in the world? And I think we have opportunities to make it cleaner, to make the jobs better. And this is only the crisis is only going to make people more reliant on fulfillment, having things delivered to your door. So we have a chance to be a world leader in that. I think that we have to work very hard to help the small business community. It's going to depend on us shopping locally, going to restaurants. We could lose up to 40% of our of our restaurants. And so we're going to have to make some decisions again to support them in order for us to get back. So the Inland Empire in the last 10 years led the nation in job creation. And so we need to, again, look at what our strengths are, look at how we can better a lot of systems in order for us to get back to normal.
Well, Paul, we want to be respectful of your time. I know it's a 20-minute, lightning round. So thank you, Paul, for taking time today, being our guest and sharing your leadership insights with our audience. We truly value and appreciate you being here with us. So thank you.
And all of our educators, we just thank you. keep doing what you're doing through trying times, right? I have a daughter who's 8, so she's a second grader, and I'm sitting here talking to you. My wife is works at the UCR in the medical school helping students, and she's carrying the brunt of the homeschooling, right? So we're all in this together, and thank you for what you're doing.
Excellent. Thanks again, Paul. And thank you everyone for joining. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay tuned for our next episode.